What's going on, guys? Hey, we got something weird. This is a Cappy Army video, so you know it's legit. But let me read the title. CIA kill team caught hunting cartels in Mexico. Quite possibly the sickest title to any video I've heard of. So I'm very excited to watch this. Again, this is Cappy Army. He has some of the best breakdowns on kind of combat, conflict style content on the interwebs. So I'll link him in the title and in the description. Make sure you follow him. He's the GOAT. This is gonna be crazy. Hey, do me a favor, like, share, subscribe, please. We are screaming to 50,000 subs right now. I am genuinely blown away. I think we're at like 42,000, man. 50,000 is like it's a huge stepping stone. It's a huge landmark. And the fact that we're even anywhere near it is I'm dumbfounded. So I just gotta say thank you guys. I won't make this a brutally long intro. We can just jump straight into it. I don't want to drag it out. Okay, let's go.
Secret joint mission between the CIA and Mexican military that the public was never supposed to know about was just dragged into the light. It's April 19th, 2026. 4 Americans are driving through the Mexican border state of Chihuahua. They're in a convoy of blacked out vehicles and they're dressed in disguise, wearing uniforms from Mexico's state investigative agency, but they're actually CIA officers trying to blend in. According to a report from the LA Times and Washington Post, the mission had been planned for weeks. Their objective is to raid 6 drug labs that are part of a larger network producing meth and fentanyl. But the operation is about to take a deadly turn. And now it's raising much bigger questions about if the United States is waging a covert war across Latin America. The target is geolocated to here, and the location sits hundreds of miles deep inside Mexico, buried in the mountains of the Sierra Madre. From here, those drugs then move north into Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. This region is the heart of what's known as the Golden Triangle, a remote, rugged zone that's been a cartel stronghold for decades. Since the 1960s, it served as a hub for narcotics production and trafficking. 75% of illicit substances trafficked into the United States comes from here. It's the most dangerous operating environment in the country. As the team moves in,
Hold up, what the hell? They're AKs, but they just look so No, I don't know what that is. What is that rifle, guys? It almost looked like a weird AK-12 variant, but I can't tell. Also, look at him looking at the camera. He's like, "Did you get the shot?"
Most dangerous operating environment in the country. As the team moves into their target, US operated MQ-9 Reaper drones circle overhead, providing surveillance. The drones give them the go-ahead to attack now. They flip down their nods, night vision goggles, they breach the doors with explosives. Cartel members are taken into custody. Inside, agents find fully operational meth and fentanyl labs. They destroy them on site.
Wow.
In a series of strikes on this night,
I want to see this shit, man. Look at that, dude. Just in the middle of a forest. They got a full, that's not even a drug lab. That's like a drug plant, a drug factory.
They destroy them on site. In a series of strikes on this night, they shut down a key node in the cross-border drug pipeline, creating disruptions that ripple across the entire trafficking network, which matters now more than ever because currently the cartels are on the back foot for the first time in decades. They're weaker than they've been in years because in a string of similar joint US-Mexican operations, they killed Jalisco New Generation cartel boss El Mencho, and then days later, a lot of people didn't see this, but senior figures inside the Sinaloa cartel are eliminated by Mexican forces, but it barely makes headlines. What's left is the cartel command is now starting to fracture. Rival factions are turning against each other. A civil war is exploding between the cartels over who will be left standing. But not every joint mission goes off without any errors like those, because the 4 American operatives on this mission and the Mexican troops load back up into their vehicles and they begin exfiltrating back from the objective. But this is where everything goes wrong. According to the official story, as the convoy moves along these poorly maintained mountain roads, The lead vehicle loses control and skids off the road and tumbles down into a ravine. All 4 occupants are killed in the crash. The vehicle explodes into fire. 2 CIA officers are dead, along with the senior Mexican state agency director. But at the scene, something doesn't add up. Local police and Mexican media notice inconsistencies almost immediately. As they begin identifying the victims, they realize there are Americans embedded among the Mexican troops.
Leaders in Mexico are demanding answers after 2 CIA employees were killed in a car crash following a drug lab raid.
The story breaks fast and spirals into an international incident. Chihuahua Special Prosecutor Wendy Paulo Chavez confirms that the 2 Americans were dressed as civilians with their faces covered mostly, and they were carrying no weapons or identification. Did the Mexican government really know about this mission or not? Was it really an accidental crash or was something more sinister happening here? The official story of what happened to the 2 CIA officers has shifted multiple times. There are contradictory accounts from officials in both countries. First, U.S. Ambassador Ron Johnson, a former CIA officer himself, tries to tell a new story that the CIA officers were just visiting the embassy staff along for some joint training, helping out with drone training. But that cover story proves to be too flimsy. Neither journalists nor the Mexican government appear to buy it. The first clue that they weren't embassy staff was that they'd entered the country on a tourist visa with no work authorization. The other American operative used a diplomatic passport, but his records didn't match up with anything that the Mexican government had on file. Insider sources later revealed to the LA Times that this was actually the 3rd occasion where the CIA joined in raids in the Mexican state of Chihuahua. Officials scrambled to change their story again. Speaking to News Nation, former Navy SEAL and FBI Special Agent John Gilliam revealed that the agency has used stories of car accidents before in the past to cover up combat deaths of officers in the field that were sensitive. This is usually only done in extremely sensitive diplomatic situations. The inconsistent stories made people believe.
I want to know what you guys think about this type of situation, like covert ops from the CIA in different countries. Let me know in the comments. My viewpoint is I think it is so cool. I think as long as it's for the right reasons, right? As long as we're killing bad guys, and we're not doing, really bad or heinous things, which for the record, I haven't really heard of from the CIA, as far as, I don't know, doing something like really bad. But I think it's so cool having these basically secret operators embedded with these different, with the Mexican police and military, and carrying out these missions to take out major drug operations. I think that's so rad, dude. Plus, fentanyl kills more people in the United States than anything else. Not any drug, not any substance, no, just anything else. Over car accidents, over heart attacks, over you name it. Fentanyl is number 1 and climbing.
That the American operatives may have actually been killed during the raid itself, or the cartel ambushed the convoy as it drove through the mountains. The agency has a wall of unnamed stars at their headquarters listing all the people who have died in service of the country on classified missions that cannot publicly be announced. In fact, Title 50 missions, which this almost certainly was, covert action is defined as activities where it is intended that the role of the United States government will not be apparent or acknowledged publicly. It's unclear how many Mexican troops were on the raid that were even aware of the secret U.S. presence. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum stated, quote, "Evidently, the military didn't know that there were people participating who weren't Mexican citizens, that there were foreigners participating in the operation," end quote. According to public statements by Sheinbaum, the CIA officers were not authorized to operate in Mexican territory. Mexican law and U.S. official policy prohibit CIA operations in our southern neighbor without the express permission of the government. If President Sheinbaum really had no knowledge of the mission, then the statement carries an alarming implication that the intelligence operatives may have actually been operating under a secret agreement with the Chihuahua state government. This is in direct violation of the Mexican Constitution. It was not an operation that the security cabinet was aware of, were not informed. It was a decision by the Chihuahua government. To understand how that's even possible, this mission, you have to look at one unit that the public only recently found out about last year, named GAIN. According to reports from Reuters, the CIA helped stand up GAIN in the 1990s as what is called a vetted unit. This means every member is polygraphed, closely monitored, and effectively hand-picked to work alongside U.S. intelligence. Former leader of the outfit, Roberto Oliveira, describes it as a hunter-killer team, built to track and dismantle cartel networks using US-provided intelligence and tech. This created the playbook for how these joint missions operated. Former CIA narcotics chief Jack Devine said the decision was made to create units where we're really going to give them state-of-the-art technical equipment and we're really going to give them state-of-the-art intelligence collection capabilities. The agency even reportedly flew out Mexican officers to America to receive training in espionage. Specialists designed prosthetic mustaches, wigs, and fake scars for the Mexican soldiers to use as undercover disguises. Today, there are at least 2 CIA-vetted military units operating in Mexico. This kind of cooperation has happened in the shadows for years. U.S. intelligence has operated in Mexico, but always under lock and key. Clandestine forces inside of Mexico have been kept on a leash, because under agreements like the Bicentennial Framework, Mexican authorities greenlight all of these targets, Mexican forces make the arrests, and the U.S. stays in a supporting role. That's been the deal. But this mission that we just saw doesn't quite fit that pattern. This is the first real concrete evidence revealing the level of involvement in these raids. High-level officials are already starting to resign over it. The Mexican government's conflicting accounts also raise the possibility of something deeper. And this is what I think really happened. Duncan Wood from the Wilson Center believes President Sheinbaum's statements are directed more towards a domestic audience. Quote, any Mexican leader is naturally going to express concern and also surprise when U.S. operatives are discovered in Mexico, even though the fact is that this happens all the time. And the reason why they expressed concern and surprise is because of the deeply held nationalist feelings in Mexico, as you would find in many countries, about operatives being active there. Operations like this happen in secret for a reason. It's for the safety of the US agents and also to preserve the integrity of the Mexican leadership. If the public learned that their leaders tolerated American intelligence officers rooting around in their country doing God knows what, it could fracture the foundation of public trust and destabilize the country. Reuters journalists Drazen Gorgic and Laura Gottender detailed in full how the partnership works in a kind of look the other way, hush-hush open secret between the two nations. So President Sheinbaum herself is in a tough spot, trying to simultaneously balance her nation's sovereignty and national spirit against immense pressure from the United States and her own people to crack down on the drug cartels, or risk direct military action on Mexican soil with or without their approval. An indication this is what really happened is how quickly all of this has been swept under the rug and how muted the response has been. Both countries appear to want to put this to rest quickly. Normally, it's DEA and FBI agents on the ground in Mexico, not CIA officers, and even then, only in training, support roles, rather than taking part in any assault teams. The agency is usually most comfortable working behind the scenes. It's in the U.S. strategic interest for a strong Mexican government to take the lead on actual groundwork. So how is the cooperation working? Mexico's state of Chihuahua actually has the highest level of joint operations between the United States and Mexico. Jorge Armendariz, the spokesman for the State Public Security Secretariat, said that 18 analysts from the United States agencies, including the DEA and FBI, will now be stationed at a new intelligence center in the city of Juarez, just 10 miles south of El Paso, Texas. This year, they just opened in April what's called the Binational Intelligence Bunker. Bi-intelligence goes both ways of the border. They're opening a giant Sauron Eye-style 20-floor building that has a massive command center for monitoring the cartel called the Sentinel Platform.
That's
based
sick.
on the surveillance technology from Palantir and what they do in America. It's a state-of-the-art nerve center for all public safety operations that cost over $80 million. It brings together thousands of cameras, license plate readers, drones, helicopters, public panic buttons, all into one system. It's crazy how analysts use it. They use an iPad to just touch the screen and choose any camera or source that they want to monitor live. The surveillance state that we have here in America is now being exported south. It's like something out of what a 1990s TV show thought command rooms should look like in the police department. The bunker has 150 analysts who coordinate these investigations. Mexican officials say that the partnership helps stop human trafficking as well. If the CIA is embedded with these teams, though, fighting the cartel, what else are they getting themselves into? Reuters reported that inside the agency, headquartered in Langley, Virginia, they are moving resources and personnel to amp up counter-cartel efforts. They created the new Americas and Counter-Narcotics Mission Center, where they got $200 million in funding boost per year. Some of the best officers and top counterterrorism officials have reportedly been reassigned to work on the Mexican cartels, according to 3 intelligence sources who spoke to Reuters. We've since learned how deeply involved they were in the operation to kill Mencho in February. The CIA supplied intelligence that got him as wild. It started by tracking an OnlyFans model who Mencho was communicating with. According to Intelligence Online, they exploited the metadata that was associated with the young lady's profile. Investigators were able to identify a device indirectly linked to a remote and isolated property in the Mexican state of Jalisco. Then an American analyst team located in Arizona, just 15 miles from the border in Mexico, got to work. This place is home to NetCom and Army Intelligence Center. It's where Digital Targeting Center is located, run by Colonel Dana Riley. Every day they wake up and their job is to find people and have them killed. Intelligence Online sources revealed that 2 special MQ-9 Reapers were then deployed. Using a SOAR, which is Scalable Open Architecture Reconnaissance Pod, on its wings, they scan for electromagnetic emissions. It intercepts low-power communications like phones, look through cartel burner phones, and isolated Mencho by finding who he was talking to, this OnlyFans chick. The agency's Special Activities Center was involved on the ground raid as well, and they helped track his movements and provided the much-needed intelligence on Mencho's compound, but it was still Mexican forces that did the door kicking.
Dude, he literally got by an OnlyFans model. Oh. Damn.
The April 19th raid was the most active role that we've seen the CIA take yet, and it indicates possibly a more intrusive level of U.S. involvement in kinetic operations. Speaking about the crash, Mexican Security Secretary Omar Harfuch characterized the relationship with the CIA, saying, quote, "Going to support any operation is different from actually being part of the planning of the operation. Agents have never been in the field with us." End quote. Mexican authorities in the past have been concerned about going directly after the drug lords. They feared the power vacuum would only fuel further violence and encourage more radical newcomers to fill the void left at the top. It's easier to attack an enemy with friends, though, and the entire region is now shifting how they deal with cartel violence. If we zoom out, we notice a larger trend happening across Latin America now. Just weeks before this raid, leaders from across the Western Hemisphere met in Washington, D.C. for what was
Bro, the hair on that one. That is great.
Called the America's Security Summit. This has been pushed heavily by the new Trump administration. A day
Looks like you should be the lead singer for Fall Out Boy.
after the meeting, Colombian President Petro ordered a strike against narco-terrorists in his country, eliminating 7 members of the cartel. The trend continues in Bolivia, where their president, Rodrigo Paz, announced the country has welcomed back the American DEA after 17 years ago when the country's former president kicked the DEA out, accusing them of spying and supporting opposing groups. Seeing the DEA invited back to Bolivia is a huge change. They're now resuming intelligence sharing, officer training, and operational coordination with drug trafficking. But nowhere is this more apparent than in Ecuador, where U.S. Special Forces have continued to go on joint missions with Ecuador's forces.
Bro, that's still one of the hardest photos.
Targeting the...
Look at this dude in the hood right here. Bro, I think I made that character in Ghost Recon Wildlands.
Cartels. U.S. military deployed a group of
So
U.S.
cool.
Air Force personnel to the Ecuadorian military base in Manta beginning in December. The walls are closing in now on the cartel leadership across Latin America. Ecuadorian forces captured the country's 2 most powerful cartel bosses last year. The head of Los Chernos was found in a bunker in his mansion near the coastal part of the country. He was then extradited to the United States. A few months later, the head of Los Lobos was captured in Spain. He tried to face change Max effects by going through several surgeries to change his appearance, but billions of dollars worth of CIA biometric face tracking was better than that. The focus throughout Latin America is on transnational criminal organizations. What was once a law enforcement problem for the whole entire region is now a national security threat. For years, cartels were treated as criminal networks. Now they're being discussed in the same category as insurgent groups. That opens the door to this completely different set of tools, like these CIA paramilitary teams. When the operation against Venezuela happened, the CIA deployed in Colombia for cross-border missions. This increase is happening now all over Latin America. This must be like operational whiplash for the CIA, though, going from selling coke to now destroying it. You can already see the effects. Mexico has deployed 200,000 military personnel internally for security operations, one of the largest domestic military deployments in the world. Countries like Colombia and Brazil are increasing defense budgets specifically tied to internal security and border control. Even smaller nations in Central America are expanding special operations and intelligence units focused on organized crime. U.S. Joint Interagency Task Force Counter Cartel is mapping cartel networks using counterterrorism methods. They operate kind of like JSOC, Special Forces, but under a different name across the border, bringing the find, fix, and finish mission with them. The news of alleged drug boats being blown up across Latin America's waters is out of the front pages right now, but in April, that was actually the most strikes against alleged narco-trafficker boats in a single month. And that's where this operation fits in. The line between advising and participating for US forces is slowly disappearing, and that's what this tragic incident represents. The next phase of cooperation. And that's how you end up with American paramilitary officers deep inside the mountains of Chihuahua. The only question is, how many more missions have happened like this that we don't know about?
That's it. How many more
A top
missions?
secret joint.
I mean, like, there's probably so much we have no idea about, right? When it comes to that kind of a CIA operation level of things. But I'm very curious, kind of like I mentioned before, what you guys think about this type of stuff. As far as, I mean, this goes back to Cappy was just saying, this goes back to the airstrikes and the missile strikes on the drug boats earlier in the year. For me personally, when I see there's a means to an end, for example, like I see a massive problem for, let's use this, the United States drug issue. I see a massive issue when we look at drugs that are killing Americans by the thousands, right? By the hundreds of thousands, like fentanyl. And then we look at the percentages, how high of a percentage is coming from where. And when we see that by far the majority of the percentage of these drugs are coming from these cartels in Mexico, to me it makes very logical sense to go after these guys because they're directly taking American lives, right? So when they were striking the drug boats, I thought that was a good thing. Stop these guys from bringing drugs into the country. When I see this type of operation, I think it's a good thing. I think cartels are a cancer, and I'm glad that they have been recategorized as terrorist organizations rather than like organized crime syndicates, because they are a cancer and a major problem, and they're killing Americans. And I'm strictly speaking about the drug trade. We don't even have to get into the crime statistics and metrics on the violence that they bring to the country. So I think it's cool. That's also why it kind of related. It's also why I supported what's going on in Iran, because I see a means to an end. I kind of have my foot in two different boats though, right? Because I want to see America do well, and I don't want to see Americans die, but I also live in Ukraine. I fought for Ukraine, and I'm supporting Ukraine. So I want to see Russia go down. And when Iran goes down, Russia inevitably is going to go down to some capacity because Iran's a major ally of Russia. We've known that for a long time. Um, so I support these things. It doesn't mean, and I've seen this kind of rhetoric a lot lately in the comments, but because I support certain operations or certain stances or certain viewpoints that are happening right now, does not mean I am a MAGA Trumper, I support everything Trump says or die type of deal. That's to me, they're almost not even related. Bottom line, full stop, is I want what's best for the United States of America. So if I see a policy being implemented or some kind of a campaign going on or something that I think is going to be beneficial for the United States and the American people, that's what I'm basing my opinion off of. I'm not basing my opinion off of who's pulling the trigger on this operation or even whose idea it was, or I frankly I don't care about any of that. All I care about is what's actually getting done, the action items, what's the actions that are taking place and the outcomes of these actions. And I think this specifically is a healthy thing for the United States. I've heard people categorize it like you don't want a drug dealer as your neighbor, right? Or you don't want specifically how I've heard people kind of refer to this situation with the cartels is you don't want somebody selling drugs out of your backyard, literally. Like picture living in a house and you got a drug dealer setting up camp in your backyard. It brings all kinds of issues, right? It's very much a similar premise. And I don't know. That's my thought, right? I'm always open to other other perspectives or other viewpoints. So let me know what you guys think, and let me know about Iran too, or maybe we'll cover that in another video because we've talked about that quite a bit as well. But anyways, this was really cool. Shout out to Cappy. Go follow his channel, and then like, share, subscribe here as well. I love you guys. We'll see you in the next video.